Episode 3. An abrupt move.
Vincent stood with his mouth agape as he processed what he'd just heard. A second later, his face lit up with understanding, and he flashed a saccharine smile at the stranger.
Oh, I understand. Cars, diamonds, they're also mundane. But art, eternal, priceless, is another matter. The gift that a true gentleman would choose to win over a lady.
A gentleman might win castles, lands, recognition in his field perhaps. But not ladies, not like that. It's better not to talk about things beyond your understanding.
The stranger's voice was calm and quiet, but the tension in the air was almost palpable, and Vincent could sense it.
That's not what I meant.
The stranger raised his hand slightly, and my boss fell silent.
Miss Burnell.
For the first time, he looked at me directly closely, as if his eyes could see my very soul. I barely resisted the urge to look away.
I want these paintings to belong to you. The only thing I need in return is for you to restore them. You'll have 6 weeks for the 6 paintings, and I'll need reports on the progress from time to time. After you're done, you're free to do with them as you wish.
Wait, 6 paintings? But the curator only gave me 3. The stranger tensed as if he were about to say something, but immediately changed his mind.
We can deal with that later. All right, so it's 3 paintings in 3 weeks for now.
What if I'm unable to restore them? That toxic paint?
That would be very unfortunate.
What do you mean? For whom? He didn't say a word and kept staring at me with his piercing gaze. I realized he wouldn't answer, yet I tried again. You didn't give your name.
Let's not waste time. Do you agree to take ownership of the paintings? Yes or no?
I agree. Thank you. These paintings mean a lot to me. I'm glad they will be mine, and I'll do everything to restore them as fast as I can. I caught a glimmer of warmth in the stranger's gaze.
Splendid! Well then, we can close the deal right now. Jean's a lawyer who specializes in this kind of thing.
Vincent began to fuss. Papers were poured over, and I kept staring at the stranger. He showed up right when I was desperate, like a guardian angel. He's so dignified, and there is this quiet strength to him. He seems like he can be trusted, and he looks so much like Vlad from the past. Could they be connected? No, that's nonsense. How could they be? It's just a coincidence.
Your signature, please, miss.
I carefully reviewed the document. The agreement said the paintings were now mine, but I was obligated to restore them. I was also obligated to report my progress upon request. I signed it.
Magnifique! Now, let's shake hands.
My boss cheerfully extended his hand to the stranger. After a moment of hesitation, the man took it and they shook. The deal was sealed.
Now you! What's gotten into you?
My boss hissed in my ear and pushed me toward the stranger. Our hands brushed accidentally. His face twisted for a moment, as though from an involuntary spasm. He jerked his hand back. His voice was strained now.
Thank you. Goodbye.
The sun was already high, and its rays played across my face, chasing away my dreams. I sat up and stretched luxuriously. Last night seemed like a distant dream, but the tubes with the paintings were in the corner, and the contract that said I owned them was right on the table. Someone knocked on the door cautiously. I opened it and saw Sandra standing there. She looked embarrassed.
I couldn't reach you on your phone. I was worried. So I decided to pay you a visit. You were so upset yesterday.
It's fine. I guess my phone died. Do you want some coffee or fresh juice? I called the front desk and placed an order. Sandra was looking around the room.
Where's Millie?
She's got her own bedroom, and she's a late riser. I sat on the bed, taking my phone out to charge. When I reached for the power outlet, the collar of my robe slipped down, exposing my shoulder. I noticed Sandra staring from the corner of my eye. It was the look of someone with a sweet tooth, eyeing a forbidden cake. Sandra. Did you have fun last night with your friends? You went back to them, right? Sandra's expression immediately changed and she smiled.
Yeah, I hadn't seen them in ages. We had a nice chat and a few more drinks.
Great. At least you had a pleasant evening. I need to get dressed. They'll bring up the drinks soon, and we should wake Millie up.
Yeah, I'm going out on the balcony for a little while.
Sandra stepped outside while I stared at my wardrobe. Now what should I wear? Looks great. I woke Millie up and called Sandra in just as our drinks arrived. The maid also gave me an envelope that left for us at the reception. A letter. First, I looked at the signature. It's from Leo.
It must be for you then. I wonder what it says, but we won't pry. Go on, read it.
She and Sandra took their drinks and began whispering to each other. I opened the envelope. The uneven lines and abundant exclamation marks betrayed the author's anxiety.
Laya, forgive me. I wasn't completely honest with you, as I'm bound by a commitment. But please know that I never meant to hurt you, especially now. When you walked into my life, everything turned upside down. And you became dear to me. Too dear. All my plans went wrong.
I felt a pang in my heart. I couldn't remain indifferent, even though he'd offended me.
We need to talk. I have to leave urgently, but I'll be back by noon. Please wait for me. Don't leave without me. It's important, Leo.
Bound by a commitment. All my plans went wrong. The scene from last night flashed before my eyes, he and that woman and their happy laughter. Then it dawned on me, are they engaged? I sank onto my bed feeling sick at heart. So we shouldn't leave, huh? Wait for him. Hell no. I looked at the clock. It was noon exactly. Damn it, he could be back at any moment. Sandra, Millie, we're checking out and leaving immediately. We left the hotel as soon as we could, ordered a taxi, and went to the cafe. A waiter brought our breakfast, including Millie's favorite donuts, but she only frowned, not even touching them.
Yesterday, we ran away from the restaurant. Today, it's the hotel. What's going on? What are we running from?
Sandra must have figured it out. She didn't say anything. Should I tell Millie the truth about Leo? Or would it be too much for her? I'll soften the blow. Millie, Sandra, and I accidentally found out that Leo is, really busy. I got mad that he didn't tell us about it and got into a fight with him. I think we'll continue our vacation without him. I didn't think she'd take this news well, but her reaction was even worse than expected. Her face turned red, and she sprang to her feet.
What are you talking about? Leo's a really good guy. I don't want to continue our trip without him.
I'm not saying he's bad, but he's very busy and we would be bothering him. We shouldn't be a burden, you know? Millie looked at me doubtfully, thought for several moments, then nodded hesitantly.
You managed to convince your sister.
She's so worried. I guess Leo means more to her than I thought. Sandra sized the situation up and changed the subject smoothly.
Hey, you know what's the best thing about Romania? The nature, the forests, the mountains. I've been living abroad for several years myself, and I came here on vacation just like you. I've already met up with my friends from the city, and I want to go to my home village next. Why don't you come with me? There are the woods and the mountains. Oh, and newborn lambs too.
Millie still looked crestfallen, but Sandra's suggestion had struck a chord.
Lambs? Real, cute lambs? Can I play with them?
Of course they're real. And yes, you can play with them.
Laya, let's go. Please.
Of course. Let's just finish our breakfast first. Millie's mood visibly improved, and she started eating her donuts, asking Sandra questions about the lambs as she chewed. A massive black car with tinted windows rolled up to the cafe slowly. The door opened, and I recognized the man that stepped out.
Hello, ladies. Miss Burnell. Sorry to interrupt your breakfast, but it's time to go.
Time to go? Could you be a little more specific?
You with me to my house?
Laya, do you know him?
Miss Burnell, you recall that you're obligated to report on your progress with the paintings at my request?
Yes, but...
Well, I need daily reports, and my house is far away from town in the countryside, and I rarely ever leave it. So, I believe it would be most convenient for everyone if you were to live at my place for now.
But you didn't tell me that you'd need daily reports.
And you could send them over the internet. Photos, videos, whatever.
Unfortunately, there is no internet at my house. Only an in-person meeting will do.
Laya, did you sign some sort of contract?
Millie was clearly mad. Sandra looked alarmed. And I was at a complete loss. Living with a stranger in his remote house until I restore the paintings? I don't like the idea of that one bit. But there's a contract with my signature on it. I was a fool to commit to it, but now I need to play by the rules.
I'm not going to lock you up. You can go anywhere you want and talk to your friends. The only condition is that you return to the house at the end of the day. And of course, that you devote enough time to your work.
I have to agree. So I'll do it. With a smile. Since there's only one choice, it's easiest to pretend I chose it. I subdued my doubts by force of will and smiled. Well then, your offer came at the perfect time. My sister and I just decided to change hotels. But I'm sure your house in the countryside will be just right. We're ready to go.
Wonderful.
Of course, he saw right through me. He smiled, and I saw a glimmer of respect in his eyes.
The stranger liked that you reacted with dignity.
I'm not going anywhere with him. You've lost your mind over your work. Do you even remember why we came here? Do you remember your promises? And now you're just going to leave with some psycho and obsess over paintings in his lair.
I remained silent. My sister was basically right.
Go ahead, go with him. I'm going to see the lambs with Sandra.
The stranger went over to our bags, which were sitting by the table. He effortlessly picked out my suitcase and loaded it into his car.
Laya, you don't have to go. A contract can be contested, delayed, or broken, after all.
The stranger looked at her sharply.
So, you're trying to get your friend to break the law now? Go ahead then. Tell her about the consequences.
For some reason, his words made her blush and stop talking. He opened the front passenger door for me. I cast a final look at my companions and got into the car. We drove in silence. The fields beyond the windows shifted into the woods. The woods turned to villages and towns. Finally, he spoke up.
Laya, that was dishonest. Yes, I'm sorry.
I didn't say anything. He continued, not looking at me, only watching the road.
I can't tell you why I did it, but believe me, I have very good reasons.
How did you end up in the hotel bar last night? How did you know my name?
I wanted to buy the paintings from the Brasov Museum, but the curator told me you got there before me. He told me your and Vincent's names. It was easy to find you.
Are there really 6 paintings?
7. But one has been lost for a long time now, and now the other 3 have disappeared.
He finally turned to look at me. His eyes softened, seeming more gentle.
I hope you're not angry with me anymore?
I noticed something black on the road out of the corner of my eye.
Path of luck.
Cat. Cat! I covered my face with my hands, terrified. Then I felt a sharp turn. The wheels screeched and my shoulder hit the door. When I uncovered my eyes, we had miraculously stayed on the road. The scenery continued to rush past us. Is it?
It's alive and fine. What about you?
He looked at me with worry in his eyes. I was shaking and breathing heavily.
We should stop.
As if on cue, a small cafe appeared on the side of the road. We pulled over and stepped out of the car.
I'll go get some water.
Soon he returned with a cold glass bottle and gave it to me. You saved the cat.
And almost got you killed. Should we stay at the cafe or take a walk in the forest?
I looked around. Some blue-collar workers sat at the tables, discussing something loudly. We'll be out in the open here, or alone in the woods. Let's walk in the forest. It will be better to be alone in silence. We walked down a narrow, picturesque path and spotted a fallen tree trunk, where we sat down. Well, we've saved the life of one anonymous cat.
And one well-known art restorer.
And you. Why don't you share your name? The cat incident clearly brought us closer.
Vlad. That's my name.
My heart, which had just stopped pounding, went into overdrive again. There were too many coincidences.
It's a pretty common name here.
Yeah, sure. He leaned down, plucked a blade of grass, and suddenly bit into it. It was so unexpected given his sleek appearance and expensive suit that I couldn't hide my surprise.
I loved doing this as a kid. It's sweet. Try it.
He tore another stem and offered it to me. I bit the tip cautiously. It's actually sweet. The grass was long, with fluffy tufts at the end. Mine suddenly brushed Vlad's cheek, sliding down his face.
Ah, that tickles. Just you wait.
He tickled my neck with his grass. We both laughed. I started dodging away and almost fell off the tree trunk.
Careful.
He reached out, ready to catch me, but stopped at the last moment, less than an inch from my elbow.
Your relationship with Vlad improved.
Let's go, it's time to move on.
He withdrew his hand, and his stony facade returned. A strange thought occurred to me. I doubt many people have seen him the way he was with me just now. We walked back to the car and spotted several teenagers next to it. They were trying to remove a side mirror. Vlad rushed at them and they scattered, but he still caught one.
Amadore.
Vlad shook him and yelled something in Romanian. It was so aggressive and disproportionate to the offense that I froze in my tracks. They were facing each other, and I could only see Vlad's back, but I had a good view of the teenager's face. The boy whimpered, trying to squirm out of Vlad's grip, but to no avail. He babbled some sort of excuse.
Suntem o familie mare, nu avem ce mânca.
That's when something happened. What exactly, I couldn't tell, but the boy's expression was like he was looking at death itself. Let him go. He's just a child.
And a thief and a liar. Lying about his hungry family, but that's not true.
I rushed up to them, grabbed Vlad's elbow from behind and jerked it. He froze. His fingers unclenched slowly, and the boy rushed toward the woods, stumbling as he ran. I walked around to stand in front of Vlad and finally saw his face. He looks unwell, so pale. But what scared that kid so much? We were silent the rest of the way, each thinking our own heavy thoughts. He was so sweet and nice just minutes ago, and then so furious. Yesterday he was throwing money around, and now he's mad because of some petty thieves? Something's wrong here. Deep in my thoughts, I paid little attention to where we were driving.
We're almost there.
Is that your house?
Yes.
We descended again before climbing a winding, mountainous road to the entrance of the castle grounds. I didn't even know what to think. A slight middle-aged man will comatose at the entrance, bowing courteously. He was dressed very neatly and smiling, but he still made an unpleasant impression.
Good afternoon, Master. Should I serve lunch?
Anton, this is my guest, Miss Laia Burnell. She'll be staying with us for a while. Prepare a room and any necessities for her.
Yes, Master, but this will take some time. Perhaps the Miss wishes to have lunch in the meantime?
I'm not hungry. I'd like to work on the paintings, if that's all right.
Good. Then Anton will show you to the lilac chamber.
Vlad pointed Anton to my suitcase, which contained the paintings. The butler deftly collected it.
Make yourself at home. If you need anything, just call Anton. Now please excuse me.
He disappeared beneath the dark arch with hurried, unsteady steps. Anton smiled as sweetly as he could.
Follow me, my lady.
The castle was imposing from the outside, but I only recognized the extent of this inside. We walked endlessly long halls, each grimmer than the last, and finally stopped in a large chamber.
Please, Miss Laia, you can sit here. Would that be comfortable?
Yes, thank you. I kept looking around, unable to digest that this would be my home for the next several weeks. Questions swirled in my mind. Anton, who else lives here?
Just the Master and I at present. Of course, others come, like maids and cooks, but they all live in the nearby village, not in the castle.
How long have you been working here?
Many years in this castle, but I've just started working with Mr. Vlad. He bought the castle recently. It all happened so fast.
Are there ghosts here?
Haha. Well, if you were a tourist, I'd tell you some stories. But truth be told, I haven't seen or heard anything suspicious in the 20 years I've been working here. Although this castle has a very rich, even unique history. But we can talk about that later.
Anton took his leave, and I leaned back in my seat, trying to sort through my chaotic thoughts. Vlad, who is he? I still know nothing about him. One moment, he's insufferable, then he seems sweet, then he frightens me. And this castle? Is this a normal house for a modern young man? The longer I'm here, the more uneasy I feel. No, I'll go insane like this. Work always keeps my mind busy. I opened the tubes and pulled out one of the canvases that was covered in building paint. I studied the top layer. It was very thick. Carefully applying several instruments, one by one, I managed to separate a bit of the paint from the canvas. I was in for a surprise. The bottom layer is softer than the top one, which means these paintings were covered just recently. I continued removing the paint in a frenzy. It was coming off easier than it would if it were old, but still slower than I wanted. Finally, I managed to remove a fragment the size of a matchbox. It was enough to make me faint.
(1444) Ottoman Empire, House in the Garden.
Layla Hatun, what's that?
Lael sprang to her feet, terrified, and covered the easel with her back.
What are you doing here? Damit is on duty today.
Yes, and I'm so lonely without him. And I can't even be sad at home, my father will suspect something. Layla Hatun, you're drawing Shehzade Hassan. I won't tell anyone. But since you've already broken the law, maybe you could break it again for me.
What do you mean?
They say Sultan Murad will soon leave Edirne for a long time. Damit's squad will ride with him.
Saifi twisted her hands. Her voice grew shaky.
We'll be apart for so long. He'll forget me, far from the eye, far from the heart. If only he had my portrait, I'd give it to him. I need to do something.
I think you need to fight for your love. I agree with you, but are you sure a portrait will help? I don't think it's the best way. Why don't you get married? The vows of marriage would be binding.
The daughter of the Grand Vizier and a common janissary? Dammit needs to raise his rank to make our marriage possible, if it ever will be.
Safi began to weep, and Lael felt very sorry for her.
All right, Safi Hatun, I'll paint your portrait. Although, we'll have to hurry to finish it before Dame leaves.
Safi gasped excitedly and rushed to give Lael a hug.
That's enough. Let's not waste time. Sit here. I'll get a clean canvas.
Lael went inside the house to get a canvas, and when she got back, Safi had squeezed herself into a corner, and the dog was growling menacingly. Lael rushed to help.
Guzelik, stop it. Safi's good. She's our friend.
Guzelik's ears flattened against her head, and she wagged her tail apologetically.
What's a dog doing here?
Well, I thought Shahi Hatun would let me keep her in my chambers, but she wouldn't even listen. She cried out and clutched her heart. So, I decided to keep Guzelik here. Don't be afraid. She's kind. She just mistook you for a stranger.
Safi cautiously touched the scruff of the hound's neck, and the dog happily wiggled her tail.
There you go. You're friends now. Let's get to work.
When the sketch was done, she showed it to Safi.
I'll be back in the evening to continue my work, but now it's time for my class.
Lael entered the class. All the students were already there, but the teacher was late. She considered where to sit.
I'll sit next to Vlad.
Your relationship with Vlad improved.
Aslan sprang to his feet and waved his hand at her, but Lael said hello and walked past him. As usual, Vlad was sitting with a book in a far corner. Lael approached him.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
He cast a short glance at her and continued reading. Lael looked around. Mehmed was standing at the center of the classroom.
Anyway, I think Byzantium is about to fall.
Is it? How insightful of you, Shehzadeh.
It was different before Shehzadeh Mehmed got here. We were all friends. And now he's constantly picking on everyone, especially those who aren't Ottomans.
I've noticed.
If it irritates you, please don't react. It's not worth it.
Do you think I can't figure that out on my own?
I don't think that. Why don't you stop snapping at me? I'm talking to you normally.
Vlad didn't say anything, but Layli could see that her words had reached him. He put the book away and started looking a little more friendly.
Everyone is talking about the Ottomans. They're intimidated, and that's just the start.
He should have learned how to read properly first. I hope he won't become Sultan anytime soon, and Uncle Murad lives for many years to come.
Shehzadeh Mehmed, have you already prepared your report on the Empire's history?
Report?
Yes, Shehzadeh. 12 pages. It needs to be done by the next class.
Mehmed cringed. He thought for a moment before smiling wickedly.
Both Ottomans and our slaves. I mean, vassals attend this school, right?
The students fell silent. Mehmed's words were true, but no one had ever said such a thing aloud.
I must confess my father's decision shocked me at first, but now I appreciate this wisdom. Vassals are needed to do the dirty work while noble minds think about the Empire's fate. So I want one of them to do the report for me. Who is the best history student?
Everyone remained silent. Mehmed looked around the class. His eyes narrowed maliciously.
Oh, I remember. That clown Mustafa praised you during the last lesson.
He was talking to Vlad, but the young man ignored him.
Hey, did you go deaf on your wild steps? You'll prepare my history report by tomorrow. Make it a good one.
No.
What? Are you saying no to the heir of the Empire?
It's your empire. How could a savage from the steppes know its history better than its own crown prince?
Aslan groaned, and Nure lifted her hands up in fear.
Vlad humiliated him. Mehmed won't forgive this.
Are you out of your mind? A snap of the Sultan's fingers and your family, your entire lousy country would be burned to ashes.
You're not the Sultan yet.
Mehmed clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. He was ready to go at Vlad at any moment.
If Vlad as much as lays a finger on him, he'll be executed. No matter who started the fight.
Out of the corner of her eye, Layla noticed Aslan walking toward them decisively.
No, you fool. You can't either. You're a captive, too.
Path of luck.
Layla pressed her hand to her chest and muttered to herself,
God, please don't let this happen.
The heavy door opened with a creak and a rattle.
Good afternoon, my dear students. Forgive my tardiness.
Everyone froze. Mehmed stepped back, shook head, and said through gritted teeth,
Your time will come.
Layla couldn't focus the entire lesson. She kept seeing the recent scuffle again and again in her mind. The teacher approached her once the class was over. Hoya Mustafa set a large pile of scrolls in front of her.
Here you go, Lale Hatun. These are to help you prepare for the science contest.
Lale, who had already forgotten her promise, looked at the scrolls in terror.
When is the contest?
According to tradition, it's on the day of the new moon.
I'm almost out of time, and there's Seifi's portrait.
Then the teacher stood in front of everyone and clapped his hands, attracting their attention.
Young men, follow me. We're going to a fighting lesson. The girls will stay in this classroom for an embroidery class with women from the harem.
Then I'd rather stay here.
Are you going to conquer Byzantium with your impeccable embroidery?
The students laughed, and Mehmed followed the other young men with an arrogant turn of his head. Lale and Nure were left alone in the classroom. Lale thought about the contest. Nure pulled out a sheaf of papers bound with a thread.
Nure, is that a book?
Nure laughed and whispered,
It's a very special book. It's rare, brought from Europe. The Decameron.
You're surprising me. Maybe you'd perform instead of me at the contest?
It's a collection of juicy stories about young men and women, about the things they do when...
Oh no, don't go on. Please, hide it. Shahi Hatun and the ladies from the harem will be here any minute.
The door opened, but only one lady entered carrying a chest. She bowed.
Good afternoon, noble ladies. My name is Zara. Shahi Hatun sent me here to prepare everything for the lesson.
She opened the chest and laid down the sewing supplies on the table carefully. Then she started walking around the room, looking at the scrolls on the students' desks with interest.
Zara, can you read?
Yes, my father was a scholar. And I was preparing to become a teacher back home before I came here. You are so lucky that you can study actual science. We only study how to serve the Padisha at the harem.
She walked to the pile of scrolls left for Lale by Hoja Mustafa.
I studied that. And that, Socrates? I miss his writings so much.
Why don't you study with us? The teacher would be glad to have such an educated student.
Zara opened her mouth in surprise, and Nure gave Lale's hand a light slap.
Are you out of your mind? She's a harem girl. Who would allow that?
Shahi Hatun entered the room, followed by several ladies from the harem, who lowered their heads obediently.
Take a seat. Now, embroidery is a noble occupation for a young woman, no matter her status.
The lesson was dragging for Layla.
I'm sitting here even though I've got so much to do. I need to paint the portrait, I need to prepare for the contest, and I also promised to accompany Aslan to the stables.
The lesson was finally over. Shahi Hatun led the ladies from the harem away. Zara was still in the classroom, putting coils of silk and pin cushions back into the chest.
Zara, take this.
She gave her the scroll of Socrates' writings. Zara smiled happily, bowed, and went out. Lael rushed off a moment later. She bumped into Vlad right outside the palace.
Oh, excuse me. Is your fighting lesson over?
Yes, we're done for today. Lale Hatun.
His usually grim expression was different.
They say there are man-made lakes here. I'd love to have a look. Would you show me?
Oh, well, if I go with Vlad, I can forget about the contest, and Aslan will take offense. If I go with Aslan, I'll have to say no to Vlad. And again, goodbye to the contest. I'll go to the lakes with Vlad. All right, I'll show you the lakes. Let's get Guzelik.
They went by the garden house, and Lila brought the hound.
These are the lakes. Aren't they beautiful? You can play in the water. Go on.
Guzelik rushed into the water and splashed around.
She's a smart dog, but too spirited. She needs to be trained. The simplest command is fetch. Guzelik, come here, girl.
The hound bounded out of the lake and shook herself, spraying water at them.
Ah!
Lel hid behind Vlad and pressed herself against him. She felt him straighten and tense up.
Sorry, I didn't want to get wet.
Well, neither did I. But oh, well.
He examined his clothes and shook off the water.
What were you saying about the stick?
He picked up a branch, let the dog smell it, then threw it into the forest. The hound remained standing there. Lael burst out laughing.
That's fine, let's try again.
After about 10 attempts, the dog finally understood what he wanted and started bringing the stick back joyfully. Lael joined the game, throwing the branch and playing with the dog. Eventually, Guzelik was exhausted and lay down in the grass.
I think she's tired. Let's rest too.
They sat by the edge of the water.
Tell me about Wallachia. What are people like there?
Like everywhere, they're different. But they're mostly good. Hardworking, but the endless wars put that work to waste. Wallachia is a small country squished between several strong empires, and they keep tormenting and dividing it. If I ever become the ruler, I'll dedicate my life to achieving independence.
He shook his head as if chasing away sad thoughts.
You don't need to know any of that. Your life will be completely different.
He fell silent.
I'm so ashamed of Mehmed's behavior today. It's unacceptable of anyone, especially the heir.
Funny. That's how I imagined all Ottomans. But Mehmed has proven to be more of an exception. Most people are nice here, and you are special.
Lael's heart skipped a beat.
Special?
Vlad turned to face her, and Lael felt herself sinking in his blue eyes.
Yes, you're very full of light. You chase the darkness away.
Your relationship with Vlad improved.
Something rustled in the bushes, and Aslan entered the clearing by the lake, leading Geeks the mare by her bridle.
Oh, this is no good. What if they cause a scene?
Aslan walked past Lael slowly, stopping right in front of Vlad, and offered him his hand.
Today in class with Mehmed, that was very brave. My respect.
Vlad shook Aslan's hand.
I didn't have a choice. You did, but I saw that you wanted to help me. That was even braver. My mutual respect.
Oh, boys. I'm so glad you're friends now.
We need to stick together. Mehmed won't give up that easily.
Then we'll stick together.
They heard a gong. 3 long strikes, 1 short.
Did you hear that? Sultan Murad is summoning everyone.
The Sultan's chambers were full of people. The closest members of the family were standing next to the Padishah. Then there were the viziers, the top tiers of janissaries. The further from the Sultan, the lower the rank. Layli walked forward to join the family members. Vlad and Aslan stayed by the doors.
Silence, pay attention.
The gong sounded. Sultan Murad stepped into the center.
My dear subjects, you know that gatherings like this occur only for exceptional reasons. Today, this is the case. I've decided to fulfill my long-standing intention. I abdicate my power. The new Sultan will be my youngest son, Mehmed II.
Surprise rippled through the crowd. The Grand Vizier approached the Sultan and said something into his ear.
This is my final decision.
Lal felt the world slipping away.
Our time, Romania, Vlad's castle.
I opened my eyes, unable to recognize where I was at first. Oh, the castle. I'm back here. I don't even know which looks more fantastic, the past or the present. The chamber was empty. It was so quiet that each move, each rustle seemed deafening. Suddenly I heard loud, hurried steps right above me. It sounded like 2 or 3 people were walking. A woman shrieked. I couldn't remain still any longer and ran out of the room. A hallway, stairs, another hallway, a dozen doors. Finally, I walked into the room that I had judged to be directly above the lilac chamber. Oh! I stumbled back toward the door, but it slammed behind me loudly, scaring me to death. Ah! Silence again. I walked through the dark hall, which was filled with tall, cloth-covered objects. I pulled the cover from one of them, revealing a strange device. What's this? Some ancient mechanism? Belts, straps. Oh God, it's for torture! I heard quiet footsteps in the far dark corner of the hall. Shivers ran down my spine and a sickly sense of fear clung to me. What do I do? I'll be quiet and wait. At this point, anything is possible in this place. I should keep my head down. I stumbled back quietly, trying to merge with the wall. But instead of the wall, I felt someone's back. Ah! Ah!
Laya?
Sandra, Millie, how did you... They both rushed to give me a hug.
Thank God, you're fine. We were worried, silly.
Hey, Laya.
I freed myself from my sister and Sandra's embrace. Leo, what are you doing here?
Millie called me. She said some psycho took you away. I used my colleagues' help to find out where you went. It's a good thing Sandra remembered the car's plate.
This is a bad place. My home village is nearby. I'd know.
Yeah, the village. Can you believe Sandra grew up in the village next to the cold forest?
Hold on. The cold forest is nearby?
Yes. It's at the foot of these mountains, like 3 miles away.
Millie waved her hand, words tumbling from her mouth.
And here we are, and we see this creepy castle. Everything is open, but no one's around. So we were walking around, looking for you.
Look, Laya, we need to leave now. This is a very, very bad place, and its owner... How could you leave when I asked you to wait for me? You put yourself in such danger.
It was the first time I'd seen Leo mad, almost yelling at me. I recalled this morning, the letter and the ginger bombshell. Sorry, I was hurt.
Yes, I saw yesterday. So I left a letter to explain everything.
Explain that you have a fiancé?
Fiancé?
Fiancé? What?
I don't have a fiancé.
Then who was that woman? You wrote about commitment?
No way. Nella's my business partner.
Sure, if that's what you want to call it. You know, I don't hang off my business partners near restaurants at night.
But you leave for creepy mountain castles with them.
Millie.
You see, she's my senior partner. In fact, she owns the business. She's the boss. And she's a little weird. She calls or pays a visit whenever she feels like it. And the way she acts sometimes, well, you saw it yourself. But, Laya, now's not the time. Let's leave.
I'm not going.
You demonstrated that you trust Vlad.
You are.
Out of the blue, Leo carefully grabbed me, lifted me onto his shoulder, and carried me toward the door. Are you insane? Let me go. I pounded my fists against his back.
Where do you think you're taking her?